Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Let's
Hello.
Well, this is exciting. So we're just going to give people a couple of minutes to arrive, which is pretty exciting. Oh, this is great. What a great thing to do on a Saturday afternoon. What would be great while you're hanging out, waiting just for a couple of minutes for everyone to get here. It would be awesome if you could introduce yourself in the chat really quickly. Hello, I'm such and such. So you can say where you're from, and if you want to, write down what you had for breakfast, which is pretty cool. I'm excited to see what people have been munching and where people are from. Let's find out. So I'm going to go for it. Hi, my name is Russell. I'm in... What did I eat? I actually had quite a posh breakfast. Weirdly enough, I had like fake smoked salmon first time, which I was like, what is this weird stuff? Fake smoked salmon. Yeah, that was interesting. With palm hearts, which I'd also not had. My housemate, she's quite experimental. Palm hearts. Oh, I'd never had them. They're kind of weird. They're kind of like crab sticks. But there we go.
No, I've never had them. I've tried the vegan tuna. I'm not sure about it, to be honest. It's a bit weird.
It sounds weird, vegan tuna. I've made like a fake version with like mashed up chickpeas.
Oh, that sounds nice. Yeah, I like chickpeas.
That was cool. So I'm just reading something. We've got someone from Egham. Hi, Emily. And she had a carrot and parsnip fritas. That sounds cool. With a poached egg on top. We've had banana and peanut butter porridge from Faye. Oh, that sounds good. Sounds like that would set you up for the day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Veganism, Climate Friend or Climate Foe. So my name is Russell and I'm going to be your host today, which will hopefully be good. And we are going to be exploring veganism. Now, it's gone nuts, especially in the last year, with people having the space maybe to try out new diets. And it's often touted as this like super thing. And if everybody went vegan, we would save the world. And we're going to explore the nuances of that. Look at it in terms of health, both for us and for the environment. I'm just going to hasten to add that we are going to eschew and avoid the whole animal rights side of things. So we're looking at it strictly from a environmental point of view and with a like theme of health which goes underneath that. So I'm going to quickly introduce our amazing panelists. So here we go. We have got Izzy Hopson. Hi, Izzy. Do you want to give us a wave? And Izzy is a student in Suffolk. She's a student in Suffolk, yeah. And she has just finished her A-levels and she's off to university in September to study business management. And that sounds like, yes, business management, but you'd think she'd be like wearing a power suit and all this. But actually, she has interests that are beyond business. And she really is into climate change, the effects that this has on Earth, rainforest, and the ocean. And she's been exploring this through a series of videos, which we're going to see today. We have got Glen, and if Glen wants to give a wave. And Glen is co-founder of The Ethical Butcher. And having studied food science and nutrition for ages, he went vegetarian for 25 years and then started to reevaluate his health, and he thought it wasn't getting as much out of his vegetarianism as he should be, and started doing more reading and research, which led him to switch to a paleo style of diet. As his health improved, both his mental and physical health, he is now acts as nutritional coach to some pro level athletes as well. So really interested to hear what he has to say. Then we've got Jaya Gordon-Moore, whose stage name is JayaHadaDream, and she is one of these people who appears to be annoyingly good at everything, because she is a rapper, singer, producer, journalist, radio broadcaster, activist, and community worker, which is an amazing thing. You're like a Renaissance person. And you finished your degree in sociology from the University of Nottingham last year, and your do a lot of work focused around gender, race, popular culture, and identity politics, which sounds pretty cool. And as well as being our vegan on the panel, Jaya is also going to be doing some live music for us a bit later in the session. And last but by no means least, we have Tom Peer. And Tom, if you want to give us a wave. And Tom runs an informative and interactive guided nature walk and tour through the heart of the deep Suffolk countryside. And as you're going on this nature walk, you're looking at foraging. We get information about the ecology of the area. He shows you how to identify edible and medicinal plants that are found locally, and links it in with anecdotes and like folklore tales and lost traditions that are surround the plants and animals that we come across. So that is our amazing panel, pretty broad, lots of different skills and ideas, and I'm really excited to learn from what people have found out. So there is going to be a poll that pops up, and the poll is going to pop up on the bottom, and this is just we have a bit of an idea about who we've got in the room, and I'm interested to see if people are what your dietary kind of leanings are. And don't worry, there's no judging here. There's not going to be like, and it's completely anonymous. We're just curious as to who we've got in the room, and how people identify, because it's quite a personal thing what you eat, which I discovered when I went to Veg Fest. And there's actually a dating app called Grazer, which is for plant-based people who have plant-based diet, because obviously now this is interesting, no one is vegetarian in here, which is kind of like sitting on the fence, really, being a vegetarian in a vegan discussion group. So okay, that's pretty cool. I'm just going to give it one more minute. We just had someone here, Catherine Birmingham, she's vegan until her mum and dad cook, which isn't often, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I moved in with my sister over Christmas, and I definitely let slip slightly. Right, here we go. Let's find out who we've got it in here. So sharing the results. It said failed to share poll, error. For someone else can share the results if you like. I can't do it. There we go. 43% of us in the room are vegan. No one is vegetarian. 14% are pescatarian. About 30% are flexitarian, which is you try and be like, you're like, okay, sometimes I'll eat meat, but I'll try and be veggie when I can. And 14% ethical omnivore, which is pretty cool. Oh, you can see them. That's good to know. So a good mix of people, apart from veggies. Where are they? Where are they? Clearly slacking off. But we're going to go on to our discussion poll. So, we just looked at the poll. I thought I'd do some research around this, because veganism in the UK is touted as like it's just massively, it's on the increase. And so we've got an infographic which I managed to find online, and hopefully this will be being shared with you now. So this is the infographic that talks about the current state of, so this poll was done last year. So I'm aware of the potential biases that might sneak in from this, because it was partially funded by the Vegan Society. So I'm curious as to how targeted this was, but this is what they reckon. About 10% of people aged 8 to 16 are now vegan or veggie. 7.2 million adults are currently meat-free, so about over 10% of the population. A study of obviously everyone's been eating at home and pressing buttons on their phones. Vegan orders have spiked by 163% in 2020 compared to other things, which is pretty cool. 50% of Brits say they know someone who's vegan, which I guess that's a good thing. Again, I don't know how what people they asked about this, and a record 500,000 Brits signed up to Veganuary in 2021. Whether they stuck to it, who knows? But that's how many people signed up on the Veganuary website. So that's the current state of play, the most recent stats that I could find that were as unbiased as I could find as well. So yeah, there we go. I was quite surprised by that. And on the face of it, you know, people who watch Cowspiracy are like, oh, this is brilliant. We're going in the right direction. Veganism saves the planet. So we're going to hear from our first panelist, which is who's Jaya. And so Jaya, you're vegan. So I'm just curious as to how long you've been vegan.
So I've been vegan for about I'd say about 4 years, but I've been vegetarian for like 7. Because basically I was vegetarian for a long time, and then I realized that the meat industry and dairy industry work so heavily together that it doesn't really make sense to be one and not the other. And I just, yeah, overnight I literally just became vegan, and I've been vegan since. Plus I was at uni, so it's easier to like make my own meals.
Okay, cool. And so your decision to be vegetarian and then move to vegan, what was that based on?
Um, Mainly animals at first, and then I thought more about like the environment, and then also like my own health. So those three, yeah, are the main reasons.
Okay, so that's interesting that, so when you say from a health point of view, can we explore that slightly? Because I know some people will maybe avoid a vegan diet because they feel like they're not getting the right things, but you've actually switched vegan to be more healthy. So can you explain a little bit about
I
that?
feel like veganism, firstly, it forces you to kind of be into cooking, kind of, especially if you want to have a nice vegan diet. And so, like, you get more, I got a lot more passionate about food and like making different things, and it made me actually cook more. And that's a big reason. And also, I just think meat in that, I know it's bad for like a lot of your organs in the long run. A lot of people, especially from the black community, because I'm Jamaican Irish, like we have a lot of like diabetes and things like that in our community, and so like it's good to try and reduce. And the ITIL diet, which is like Rastafarian diet, which a lot of Jamaicans follow, is ITIL, which is like all plant-based as well. So I feel like yeah, I kind of followed that as well.
Okay, so there's a cultural aspect to being plant-based as well from you, which is, I guess, something that also features across into Hinduism as well.
Yeah, just more recently I've started, because I'm quite into identity, so more recently I've started to think more about that as well, and that side of it. And I definitely want to go to Jamaica and see how the ITIL people like eat and stuff.
Okay, interesting. So yeah, I think I find that really interesting because one of the main kind of criticisms of, I guess, vegan diets is that it's like, really, are you getting things like iron and protein and those kind of
Mm,
items? And I know that like my housemate, she quite often feels quite tired, and she's vegan. And I'm curious as
mm.
to if, like, have you found any kind of
Yeah, I mean,
lethargy kind of aspects from that?
definitely, but you just have to make sure you eat. I feel like people who aren't vegan also get like head rush a lot and stuff like that. Maybe they just don't connect it so much to their diet, but um, yeah, and I take these that have like, they're massive tablets that have like a lot of different things in it and a lot of iron. Yeah, iron's important. I did actually have a blood test. I did actually get quite lightheaded at one point, but this was like years after I was already vegan, so I'm not sure if it is exactly veganism or I just wasn't eating great at that time. But I think it's easier to slip into like being anemic and stuff, because I did have a blood test and I had low iron and I had to start taking tablets and stuff. But not really overall. I think a lot of people just have bad diets anyway, and if you turn vegan, you're more likely to think more consciously about that.
Okay, no, definitely. And from an environmental point of view, so you alluded briefly to the animal rights point of view, and
Mm,
then so as more information has come out about uh, and I'm aware that it's very polarized, and obviously that all the stuff comes from the meat industry that says no, this is actually really good, and all the stuff comes from vegan industries that said no, 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 that's really bad, you need to do this. So what would you say in terms of like the environmental impact or your perceived environmental impact of your vegan
I
diet?
From what I've read and stuff, I think it has a really, I think it's one of the best things you can do as an individual, because a lot of people, it's hard to do stuff as a society because there's a lot of policies that would need to change for it to be really effective. But as an individual, I think the main things you can do is recycling and being vegan or cutting down on meat and stuff. So I do think it's good, but the problem is, I find it is good for the climate change, but the problem is that we don't all have equal access to veganism. There's a lot of people, like if you're from more poor socioeconomic backgrounds, you're way less likely to be getting into veganism and thinking about climate change because firstly you don't have time because you're busy working like a lot, or a lot of people are, and also just money. It's quite expensive to be vegan, and yeah, I think the time thing mostly as well. You need time to think about it a lot, and if you're working a lot, you don't have time to think about these things as much, and education as well. But it's just a lot easier to buy meat and stuff, and the vegan aisles tend to go like, there's so much food in veganuary, there's so much choice, and then when it gets to like February, March and that, it just, there's less stock, and like it's actually hard to find all the things you want as a vegan.
That's really interesting because you'd think on the face of it that vegetables, well, if that's all you're eating, you just go to the market and buy a load of veg. Like, what? How could that be more expensive? But I guess it's these kind of tweaked vegan meat alternatives, as well as the whole like eating vegetables that are out of season throughout the entire year, which
Yeah,
would
and I
increase
think
the.
for me, because I'm into gym as well a bit, I'm quite into like working out and stuff. I think about the protein and stuff, so I have to have quite a lot of like fake meat alternatives and stuff because it's quick and easy, and also lentils and pulses and things. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So thank you for that. That's like really set us up. So we've heard from the vegan side of things. So now we're gonna see a little video from Izzy. Now, from what I gather, Izzy didn't have a particular agenda or isn't veggie. She's just like, I wanted to explore this issue, and we'll hear from her in a sec. But we're going to watch a quick video from Izzy, who started exploring these aspects of vegetarian diets.
Being vegan means not consuming any meat or products made by animals. People cut out meat because of the cruelty on the animals and the intensive methods used to get these animal products. With an increase in population, deforestation is extremely popular in order to create space for cattle ranches. And with more people becoming vegan, they think that they are not contributing to this deforestation and the effects on the environment that being vegan has. As to anyone looking to adopt a vegan or vegetarian diet for environmental reasons may also want to consider whether there are some plant-based foods that also come with heavy priced items like palm oil and soy vegan products. It's essential to be mindful about everything we consume. Example, delicate fruits like blueberries and strawberries are often imported from the US and Europe. Soy is one of the most popular alternatives to animal products. Although using soy alternatives means that no animals are being harmed, soy has still important issues attached to it. Deforestation in South America is occurring in order to keep up with the demand for soy products. This means harmful gases are being released into the Earth's atmosphere, and this deforestation will influence the numbers of local population of animals and will decrease the population of animals, affecting the increasing numbers of animals becoming endangered and extinct. So even though people think that they are helping towards cruelty of animals, are they? Because deforestation is also affecting the animals and the way that they live naturally. The carbon footprint of soy is still extremely high and is still having harmful effects on the environment. Transporting soy across the globe into factories, into our local supermarket, means the carbon dioxide being released into the atmosphere. This harmful gas will be released into the atmosphere, affecting climate change. Palm oil. Palm oil is produced from the oil palm and is locally used as cooking oil and personal care products. Oil palm products produce 38% of the world's vegetable oil. The production of palm oil requires intense deforestation, where land is cleared to make way for palm oil. Tropical rainforests have been the most ideal countries for large palm oil farms to take place, as they are the most sustainable climate with rainfall and sunshine throughout the year. Over the past 15 years, the total land in Malaysia used for palm oil cultivations reached 42 million hectares. During that period, over 1.1 million hectares of the tropical rainforest was lost. The biodiversity in each rainforest processes has been declining at a rapid rate, affected by deforestation. Animals in the wild have been affected with significant losses for land for commercial palm oil purposes. As rainforests have been cleared to allow trees to be planted, animals have suffered from this and are no longer be able to roam free. This means biodiversity of animals are being affected and decreasing their numbers. Palm oil has been criticised for the greenhouse gas emissions. The deforestation in tropical areas accounts for 10% of CO2 emissions, habitat being destroyed, reduced biodiversity and water pollution.
Right, there we go. A lot of interesting facts to think over there. So Izzy, I'm curious as to, on your journey and your research, so what was the most like surprising thing that you were like, what? I did not realize this.
It's the whole like deforestation thing, because me and my sister have been like contemplating becoming vegan for a while now. Like within our family, we're quite a large family, so like 3-4 times a week we like have like vegan meals for all of us. And so I just wanted to do a bit more research about like where the vegan products we get are from, and just learning about the deforestation I think really opened my eyes, and like the rainforest, because like I think the rainforest being destroyed like is a massive problem and it needs to be like sorted. So learning about like the palm oil and the soy and how we get them and where we come from is just like, it really was eye-opening to me on like how I get these products, where they come from and the effects they're having on like the environment and all the like CO2 emissions and everything. And it did shock me a little bit.
Yeah, I think the palm oil argument is really tough, because I know I experimented with some veganism last summer, and I bought a big load of vegan sausages and was like, how great do these taste? Yeah, they're such a great replacement. And then my housemates were like, whoa, what's in these then? And I looked to the back and it was like 60% palm oil. And you're like, oh great. And then I noticed that the Linda McCartney vegan sausages now recently got a little star on them that says new palm oil free recipe. So it's clearly something, a fault that the vegan community or vegan food producers are now aware of and are trying to find more alternative means to do that.
Yeah, so, definitely. Like palm oil I think is a big issue, and like palm oil is in a lot of things. So I mean, like when we're shopping, we like to look for things that are ethically sourced, like, and how they like source the thing, like as long as they're like not destroying the rainforest and they're giving back to like the people who actually grew them and making sure they're not exploited in the process as well, I think is amazing as well. Because not only is like the rainforest not being touched, it's also giving back to like a local community elsewhere. And I think that is also really like important when thinking about like how we get our products. But the only thing is like sometimes it can be a bit expensive, so that's obviously going to have its downfall. But just like making sure like the little bits of palm oil and how it's sourced, I think it's always important to look at when considering these factors.
Yeah, definitely. I know, I mean, it's popping up all over the place, but I noticed the other day Biscoff biscuits, those ones that you get with your coffees, they now say on their ingredients sustainably sourced palm oil. So even though they are using palm oil, they are sustainably sourced, which is useful. So I'm just having a quick look at some of the comments. Izzy makes a good point about deforestation for palm oil and soya. Yeah, there we go. That's what it says. There is a really interesting point that popped up, which I do really like, which is something as a man you don't often think of, but obviously women lose a lot of blood once a month, and keeping that iron level up and having to replenish that blood and create new cells does take its toll on the body. So eating properly is important there. I'm just seeing if there's any did you read the thing about butter in Canada not melting in the warmth of homes because apparently cattle feed uses palm oil? There we go.
Yeah, I think that is insane because a lot of like soy and palm oil and things like that are used for like cattle feed and like animal feed. So in Canada, they were like obviously giving it to their cows, milking the cows, making butter from it. Because of this, they wouldn't like the butter wouldn't melt when it was like outside of the fridge and like out on the sides because of the palm oil, which I think is just crazy, the fact that that happens. And yeah, I think everyone should take a look at it because I think it was a really interesting article. It was on the BBC, I think. And it was just insane knowing that like the palm oil is like coming through the food and is affecting the way that this food is like made and then melts. Like I find that just like crazy, the fact that it doesn't need cold temperature. Like I don't know why, but that freaks me out a little bit.
Well, you are what you eat at the end of the day, aren't you? So what I'm going to do really quickly is I feel that palm oil gets a lot of bad press, and I'm going to play devil's advocate and say how awesome palm oil is just for a second. Okay. So because obviously when you talk about environmental impact, that's quite a broad thing, and you can look at it from different areas. In terms of land use, if you had a square meter of palm oil, you'd get 10 times the amount of oil from that than you would from the equivalent of sunflowers. So if you're thinking of our agricultural area and the space which we're using up in deforestation, is it better to plant something like palm oil because you get more yield out of it? So that's the first thing. The second thing is when you look at it in terms of biodiversity loss. And because we're all used to being like, oh, orangutans, because we like them. But actually, in terms of biodiversity loss, coconut oil is by far the worst, because coconut palms tend to grow on islands. And islands are famous for having lots of endemic species that are easily wiped out. So I believe it's like coconut oil is 3 times worse on biodiversity loss than palm oil is, which I thought was quite interesting as well. So again, I'm just trying to be devil's advocate here. So it depends what way you look at it. There we go.
Yeah, I think it's like every aspect you take a look at vegan is like there's always going to be like different pros and cons for it. And coconut oil, I didn't get to that in my research, but I do actually find that really interesting. Cool. And like I think just the fact that like the oil that we use, it like no matter where it's from, it is like still destructive, and I still just find that crazy that we haven't found options that can provide us with something that's not doing this.
And I guess it's about picking a battle and like what's most important to you, like biodiversity loss, like which animal do you like? Oh, I like the orangutan, so I'm gonna anyway, there we go. So thank you for that, Izzy. We're going to see a video from you later. I'd like to quickly bring Tom into the conversation. Hello, Tom.
Hey there. Yeah.
Hello. So you are a forager, which is an awesome skill to have, especially, in the apocalypse. but and obviously the very nature of foraging is really knowing what's in season, what's around you, when it's available. So I'm curious to bring in this aspect of seasonality, which is something that we haven't touched upon before. And one of the criticisms of vegan diets is that they aren't as seasonal as they should be, because we're so used to living in this global society. So yeah, I'm curious as to what your thoughts are about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from our perspective, and just, I don't want to take up too much time, but just briefly, so I run the tours with my partner Ashley, and both Ashley and I have been vegan. Well, we were vegan for a very long time, and now we are not. And that kind of came from not just our interest and our passion about foraging and seasonality, like you say, but also the sort of like folklore aspects of our tour and the history behind it. And we were finding it very difficult to sort of connect to the old ways when we're trying to connect to our historical past, but we're using almond milk instead of the milk that could be found right outside our door, kind of thing. And that was the kind of, it's more of an esoteric problem that we had with it. And as you say, or as was mentioned already, in terms of our culture and our heritage, I come from, my mother is very Italian. So I come from a very heavily, meat-based background. And here in the UK as well, I mean, in terms of growing vegetables, I think the most popular thing in history has been potatoes here, which is not necessarily the most, nutritionally valued thing around. So meat was a big part of it. We've kind of gone from the idea of, we're against, the mistreatment of animals, as we sort of mentioned already, and all that sort of part that goes along with veganism and the ecological aspects. And we've kind of shifted our focus from it being about being meat-based to it being about being commercialized and industrialization. And that is really where our focus is. So we've kind of diverted to more of whether it's local, ethical, regenerative, and sustainable. And that's kind of where we're coming from when we're sourcing our food, as well as the things that we forage, but it still has to be done in a conscious and sustainable method. So
interesting. So I'm guessing, well, I'm always, again, bringing this idea of seasonality in as well, is that we're so used to getting whatever we want when we want it in the supermarkets. And actually there's lots of produce that maybe we would have eaten 100 years ago, 200 years ago, that is, it's just because it's not in the supermarket, no one uses it anymore. So I'm curious, is there's something that you're like, oh my God, I just can't believe this isn't in supermarkets. We could really fill a gap here. We could reduce carbon emissions from bringing things overseas.
Yeah.
Is there a food that you would like to see in supermarkets?
Definitely. I mean, like to be perfectly honest, literally everything that we come across and we show our guests in terms of plants, it would probably astonish you that you would normally just walk over this or trample it and not even know that it's actually edible, or it could be made into a tea, or it has some sort of benefit to you in some way. A hedgerow is a perfect example of that. Hedgerows are full of food, medicine, not to mention ecological benefits, right? But in terms of this conversation, in terms of veganism and meat eating and the differences between that, one thing that really astonishes me a lot is that wild game isn't a more not necessarily readily available, but a more sort of like culturally acceptable food. We have an abundance of deer, we have an abundance of rabbits in this country that do sort of need maintenance, and I know that we're towing a line between what's ethical and what isn't, but I definitely find if we want to sort of direct people into a more plant-based diet, if that is our goal, we need to sort of ease people in that direction. And not just say you can't eat meat, but we have to say you should be eating less, and you should know where it comes from, and it should be, here. And I think that's sort of the most important message from an individual ecological standpoint kind of thing.
No, I think definitely. I mean, I read, because we killed all the top predators in this country, and there's obviously little, ideas about bringing, reintroducing wolves and things like that. But the deer numbers in this country are the highest they've ever been in history. And the impact that has on just the grazing impact on our natural forests, instead of just mindlessly culling these deer or leaving them to their own devices to breed out of control, if we sustainably ate deer and rabbits, which also cause lots of damage, then that would be a way of controlling their population potentially. So cool. So just moving on, thank you for that, Tom, really interesting. And I'm just really conscious of time, and I really want to explore all of these things, but I'll be told off if we go over time. So we've got another little video from Izzy, which focuses on organic farming. So if we could have a cue that up, that would be brilliant.
Organic farming means using no harmful or intensive methods to grow the products that we eat, or animal products. Organic farming is a method of crop and livestock production that involves choosing not to use pesticides, fertilizers, genetically modified organisms, antibiotics and growth hormones. This means using less non-harmful chemicals and intense methods to grow the products that we eat. Organic farming allows plants and livestock to be natural in the way that they are produced. For livestock, this means being able to roam free and live their lives, not trapped in a metal cage and being pumped with harmful chemicals. Organic farming will have less harmful effects on that environment and is not pumping harmful chemicals into it. Organic farming can just be shopping locally or picking something up at the supermarket. Just making small differences like this can help change. It's not affecting deforestation and the declining numbers of the rainforest. Becoming vegan definitely has its benefits towards the environment and health of people and animals. However, becoming vegan has also impacted the environment and in turn can be more harmful with the thought of the rainforest. Although people become vegan no longer contribute to animal cruelty, certain vegan products are still contributing to this deforestation, and I would recommend that when shopping, look for products that do not have palm oil or ethically source them. So to help lower environmental issues and help the community, shopping local may be the best option.
Sorry, I'm muted. There we go. So what we're going to do then is we're going to bring Glen in, and I'm really excited to talk to Glen. We had a little catch up, and I was just like, oh, I totally want to go to the pub with Glen and just pick his brains about all food things. So Glen, you're an ethical butcher, which some would say would be a bit of a tautology, but last month during Veganuary, you run an alternative campaign called Regenuary. I'm curious if you could talk us through that slightly.
Yeah, so the idea behind Regenuary really was a thought process, and it came from I was in central London. I kept seeing posters up by KFC and Domino's Pizza for all these Veganuary products, and I started thinking, what on earth is in these things? First of all, you've got companies like KFC, which are responsible for some horrific farming practices, who are then for 1 month making a burger out of not chicken, but some sort of fake meat, processed monocropped grain or cereal or something flown in from around the world. And it just made me think that if Veganuary was attaching itself to these sort of products, that the whole kind of narrative was wrong. Was it Quorn as the KFC burger? Okay. But the whole narrative was wrong. You're just swapping out a factory farmed animal for a factory produced fake meat substitute. And really, the conversation we should be having is not about whether you do or don't eat meat, but everybody, no matter what you eat, should be looking to source it better. And, like Izzy's pointed out a few great things here, is that sustainability is no longer, it's not attached to either meat or vegetable products. You can eat a low impact diet as an omnivore. You can eat a low impact diet as a vegan, or a high impact diet as a vegan or omnivore. It's the idea behind Regenuary is to get everybody, regardless of what you decide to eat, to try and source as much food as you can from regenerative agriculture. And regenerative agriculture is producing food in a way that is not just sustainable, but is actively improving the environment. And that can mean improving biodiversity or sequestering carbon, so removing more carbon from the air than you're releasing.
Okay, so that's. I mean, I can't find a single person who would argue with that case. So I guess one of the contentious issues is the cows, and in terms of because cows, irrespective of whether you've got them in a nice natural setting or whether we've got them in an industrial setting, because they're ruminant animals and they're producing vast amounts of methane because they've got full stomachs, they digest the cud and they bring it back up, and it's actually cow burps that produces methane gas, which is 20 times worse than carbon dioxide. So would you say, I'm curious as to how cows fit into this regenerative idea? And is it like a no cow thing, or
no? I mean, the methane question is a really, really tricky and really interesting one, and there's a lot of debate on either sides, because in the 1970s there were way more cows in the world than there are now, and yet methane levels are a lot lower. So there's a lot of debate and argument as to whether cows are responsible for global atmospheric methane levels rising. Like rice farming, for example, produces more methane than cattle do. Thawing permafrost produces way more, as the climate is warming. And the climate is warming predominantly because of fossil fuel usage, not because of agriculture. And as permafrost is thawing around the world, this is releasing ridiculous levels of methane. Methane it's a very contentious one because it's got a very short life in the atmosphere compared to carbon dioxide. Any methane released within 10 years is broken down into water and carbon dioxide in the upper atmosphere. And it's cycled, it's sequestered. So when it becomes, even as methane, it can be taken up by methanotropic bacteria in the soil and reabsorbed. And there are bacteria who actually use methane as a source of nutrition. But what regenerative agriculture is about is don't put your cows in a shed and feed them grains, leave them on the field, move them frequently to mimic the natural movement they would have had pre-agriculture. And this effect on the land will sequester carbon. And what sequester means is it means that when the animals have moved through an area of pasture and they've eaten it, they've pooed on it, weed on it, trampled it in, trampled all the seeds in, you get this massive increase in growth and this massive bloom of biodiversity. And that can, and it's been shown that that can actually remove more carbon and methane than the animals are producing. So a part of the narrative has to be the methodology for keeping animals, not just saying don't have them or do have them. It's all about how you keep them.
Okay, and so I mean, I think that again a really good point there. So would you, as someone who is an ethical butcher, are you also doing like trying to reintroduce maybe meats like we spoke about before, like venison and rabbit and things? Do you think that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's part of our future plan. At the moment, we're a really small company, and the size of our premises isn't big enough to get. You need a whole separate food standards agency license to process game, which we don't have. We don't have enough room to do that. But absolutely, I want to kind of get people to, start to, as Tom said, we have a fantastic source of nutrition to humans, which is the original red meat in the UK was venison, before cows were kept commercially. And venison are out of control. The numbers need culling. There's no apex predators, all the things that Tom said. We should be eating them. We should be eating it a lot more. The sad fact is that this incredible source of nutrition is mostly sent abroad from England. Most of the venison that's killed is sold in France. We should be using that ourselves. So absolutely, we will be doing that. But also, when you just think about how deer are living, and deer are grazing animals as are cows and as are sheep, there's a natural relationship between the animals and the land, and the natural grasslands need to be grazed. Without the grazing animals within the system will either not thrive as much as it should, but they will, these systems can die off.
No, absolutely fascinating. Yeah, like you say, this idea of everything's linked and all these cycles, these animals and plants have evolved together over millions of years.
Absolutely.
So if we start removing aspects of that, then we create gaps in the cycle and it doesn't continue. So
yeah, that's true. That's this reductionist approach to agriculture has led us into a bit of a cul-de-sac, certainly environmentally. And if you think about the difference between a field of wheat, for example, where the farmer they have a vested interest in only having one thing growing in that field, and that's the wheat. The farmer doesn't want any other plants or any other animals or anything competing for that crop. So you could have 100 acres with only one thing growing in it. And conversely, if you imagine the way that our farmers are keeping cattle within a regenerative system, they're actively trying to improve the biodiversity and to increase the biodiversity. They want as many plants living in that field as they can have, because different things are flowering at different times of year. This is attracting a huge number of pollinators and rodents and birds and insects and butterflies and everything. So it's this reductionist approach versus a holistic approach. So with regenerative agriculture, you're trying to make a massively complex ecosystem, and with monocrop agriculture, you're trying to reduce that biodiversity to an absolute minimum. So they're almost like completely opposite approaches. And if you want to look at it as an analogy, this is the sort of veganism versus ethical omnivorism. That they're almost coming from quite different approaches as to how the food is produced.
Definitely. So, I mean, loads to think about here, which is amazing. So, what I thought I would do is I've done a little bit of research and I've tried to put that research into a game, okay, which we're going to have a go at playing now. I'm aware that we're running out of time, so I'm not going to take too long on the game. So this amazing game, I'm going to share my screen and I apologize for how crap this is. Right, this is Play Your Cards Right, food impact version, okay? And I got Alan Carr, so it's like play your cards right. Here we go. So for people who are not familiar with this game, basically it's like a higher, lower, and you've got to work your way along. And we're going to look at the food impact of different things in terms of their environmental impact. So Alan here, he's been doing some research and he's read a very interesting scientific paper that did a meta-analysis of 120 different countries and how they produce their food. And we're going to look at combined greenhouse gas emissions from all of these aspects. Okay, land use, farming, animal feed, processing, transport, retail, and packaging. And we're going to look at it in terms of carbon dioxide equivalent. So this accounts for methane that we were talking about before. So this is the carbon dioxide equivalent for every kilogram of produce that has been produced. So I spoke a little bit about beef being really bad. So the first one, you've basically just got to guess higher or lower. So what we'll do in the chat window there, if you could put your thumbs up, like if you think it's going to be higher, or you can, I think there's like a face as well that you can do in Zoom where it's like, oh, it's like a surprise face. Oh, that's down. And if you get it wrong, then you just have to be honest. There's no prizes. I just thought I would play a stupid game. So the first one. So this is what the scientific paper, and I put the paper link down the bottom there. This was the worst. So for every kilogram of beef produced, this study found that globally it produced 60 kilograms of carbon dioxide for every kilogram of cow meat. So this is the top one. So that I've basically given you the upper range. So higher or lower, you're going to obviously, everyone should be going lower, right? So what have we got lower? Apples. Look at that, because they're a plant. In terms of carbon dioxide equivalent, loads less. So higher or lower? This is what you've got to guess. What's it going to be? Higher or lower? What's the next one going to be? Higher or lower? Oh, I'm just looking at the chat. Bananas, higher slightly. So I was surprised about this. Globally, even shipping bananas across the world doesn't make that much of an impact. I was like, what? Bananas, really? So I was like, okay. So we'll go again. Higher or lower? What do you reckon? Up or down? Up or down? Higher, lower, higher, lower, higher. It's going to be higher, but not by that much. And obviously Suffolk being predominantly pig agriculture, I was surprised at how low this was compared to cow meat, because pigs don't chew the cud. So yeah, so their impact in terms of carbon dioxide is much, or equivalent, is much lower. Finally, coffee. I'm sorry to all you coffee drinkers out there. Look at that. That's ridiculously high. You would not think that coffee would have that impact in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, but it does. So I'm sorry for all you coffee lovers out there. Right. So you get the idea. This is what it is. So I'll do another one. That was round one. Who won? Did anyone get to the end of round one? Guessing higher or lower? I'm looking. I'm just keeping an eye on all the social media things. We'll do another one really quickly. Okay. Right, here we go. Next one. Right. So I'm going to give you, here he comes. And we know that cows are 60. So we'll start off with nuts. Nuts are the lowest in terms of carbon emissions, but I'll come back to nuts in just a sec. Okay. So higher or lower? Obviously I've given you one there. So higher. Everyone should be shouting higher at the screen. Cow milk. Again, I was like, surely this would be loads worse because of the cows, but no, cow milk. Not as bad as coffee. I was like, what are you chatting? Okay. So then, okay, higher or lower, higher or lower? Oh, palm oil. Oh, naughty palm oil. 8 kilograms of carbon dioxide for every kilogram of palm oil. Not that great. Higher or lower, higher or lower? Oh, chocolate. 19. What? It was like, Russell, you ruined chocolate. You ruined coffee for us. Thanks. It's the last time I come to a Zoom session. Right. So higher or lower, last one. Look at that. Sorry, I'm just shocked that chocolate is worse than pork. But there we go. Okay, higher or lower. Farmed fish, 12. There we go, as opposed to wild caught fish, which wasn't on this study. So that's in terms of kilograms per carbon dioxide equivalent. Really quickly, I'm going to look at it in terms of water use. This, incidentally, what the study found out, it said that transportation makes up a very small amount of emissions. What you eat is far more important than where your foods travel from. So let's look at it in terms of water use really quickly. So this has been adjusted for scarcity. So for things that are grown in an area where there's not much water, that requires a lot of water, this has been adjusted. And this is how many liters of water it takes to make each kilogram of these foods. So I'm going to start you off with the worst one, nuts. 230,000 liters equivalent for every kilogram of nuts. What? And you thought nuts were awesome. Well, okay, so higher or lower. I've given you an easy one. Higher, lower. Everyone should be going lower. Here we go. Pig meat, so much less. And again, I included this because Suffolk is predominantly an agricultural place. Right, next one. Higher or lower. We've got cheese. Okay, somewhere in between those two. Not too bad. Higher or lower. Palm oil. Look at that. So in terms, because it's grown in the tropics where there's loads of rain, its scarcity weighted water use is one of the lowest things you could possibly get. So in terms of global water use, palm oil is actually really good. Who'd have thought? And then finally, olive oil, because it's grown in hot, dry countries. So when everyone out there was like, oh yeah, olive oil is great, I'm going to do that instead of palm oil. Not when you look at it in terms of water use. Anyway, I'll stop. So did anyone win 3 rounds? No. Okay, there we go. Right. What I'm going to do, I've stopped sharing. And so I think it's time. We're running a tiny bit over time, but not too bad. So what I'd like to do then, we should have, right before the live music, we should have a little poll that is going to pop up now. And this poll is just going to say, we've been talking about lots of things. I'm curious as to whether people are going to change their diet or not as a result of things that they found out from this discussion, and what the general consensus is. Because, I mean, I'm blown away by all this. I mean, I should probably say that I have been experimenting with being vegan since, and I've been wavering between vegan and veggie, but I've done my first vegan 2 months since I've moved into my new house, and I got really, really tired and realized I wasn't eating enough iron. So yes, but there we go. So some people are going more plant-based. Ooh, but it looks like the majority of people are going for more conscious choices. There we go. So we've got, there we go, which I think generally is what we need to do. Instead of saying like, I am a vegan and plastering like a sense of identity on it, I think having just more awareness about where our food comes from, and it's a minefield, as we've seen, but trying to pick your battle, it seems what we need to do. So we've got one last little feedback poll, and then we're going to pop over to Jaya, who's going to play some music for us. Amazing. She's going to play us out. So I'm curious as to whether what you've got out of this session. Has it been, did this session further your understanding of the topic? I'd love a longer session. I know what you mean. Definitely a little, not a lot. Don't know. There we go. I'd love a longer session. That's surely, but it's fair enough. If you'd rather have a longer session, then I'm not sure that question should be in there, but it is. There we go. Okay. Anyone else want to click? Well, hey, right. I'd love a longer session. That's what I do. This is massive, and I'd really, clearly an hour is not long enough to explore all these different ideas. But what I'd like to do is thank everyone for coming out. Thank you to all our panelists for being involved. Thank you to everyone for contributing your comments and taking part in this interactive discussion. And without further ado, I am going to pass over to Jaya, who's going to play us an awesome song.
Hi, I'm Jaya. I rap, sing and produce, as I said earlier, and I've not really been able to incorporate my music so much with my veganism, or even though I've been vegan for longer than making music. So I'm happy to be here to share more of a rap piece or two. Hope you enjoy.
To be reckoned with now, I'm forced to be reckoned with now. Sound like a golden child. I'm forced to be reckoned with now. I'm forced to be reckoned with now. Sound like a golden child. I learned that hate just won't heal me. Affirmation makes a real G. Bitterness, I'm guilty. Weed money, filthy. Grew up in England where the rich stay wealthy. B-town was stealthy. Snakes in the grass, but the grassroots built me. The anger never filled me. Schools tried to ditch us, the school never killed me. Never kept me in the same place. Never one to name names. Cheap cheese to stay sane. With ease I played safe. Never played these man's games. No brother, this flames. This is real heat, talking from the real streets, loitering to find peace, selling green so high key. It's a shame that the oldest just dead. Talks to school at 16, mentally just not there. Lion's mane on my head, just hid in my hair. Hated all the counsellors, don't act like you care. Past 9 to 5, where do I go with my despair? Born in the UK, but they're telling me to go home. BMXing around the block, pedaling round postcodes. Don't want a slice, I want the whole loaf. Absorb my heat like ozone. This curly you who's unknown. Spitting fire with the bros, my attire so froze. Take whatever life throws, from the concrete rose grows. Through my highs I found lows, they're like, Jaya, that's true, say. Smelling like a bouquet, sweeter than souffle. Happy for my homies, it doesn't matter who's paid. This life is just monopoly, consuming shit subconsciously. Anxiety on top of me, the higher me won't topple, G. I'm sick of half-hearted apologies. I know I'm an anomaly. They can't block morality. Box it as commodity. Can't sell this pure philosophy. Will turn your could apostrophe. You just couldn't do it. Sometimes we can't help them. They just would've blew it. It's hard to say. Out of all of my friends, I inspire me the most. That's not a circle, that's a rope. A blood clot noose. So when I hit you with the truth, remind you of your hidden roots. Don't act like it's new news. We all got our innate goals. I'm no longer here to awake souls. Yeah. Got our innate goals. I'm no longer here to awake souls. A force to be reckoned with now. A force to be reckoned with now. Sound like a golden child. A force to be reckoned with now. A force to be reckoned with now. Sound like a golden child.
Thank you. That one's called Forced to be Reckoned. It's coming out soon. And then I've just got one last small piece to show you, just a little freestyle. Yeah, you can find me on all platforms, JayaHadaDream. I write down everything I need to remember. My head's fucked like my attendance throughout all of December. I sit in darkness writing words using the light from my ember of my cannabis stick. Don't judge what you cannot render. Never look from outside and lay down your perspective. The heart sees what it wants 2020, but your lens is deceptive. Ignorance the biggest bliss, but ignorance the biggest bitch. I just observe and roll my spliff. The evil's always trying to trick me into believing everything that I see. Pop culture tries to determine everything that I be. In a world of fake news, they try to find authenticity. I'm the epitome, it's clear amongst all the complicity. I bring light to the dark like Edison's electricity. I bring her to the front and leave him in history. I'm sorry that was the bitch in me. Humble but I am rich to be. PTSD got me seeing things real differently. Like, yeah, I struggled but I see my future so vividly. See a crowds preaching my words like it is litany. I be promoting all my mates, I bet my followers sick of me. But we gon' roam the scene with capital like we are from Italy. Haters wanna chat now, so proud but they never claim their backgrounds. Your lyrics are repetitive, that's why I call you rap round. A lazy sellout like a fat clown at a kid's party snorting white in the back lounge. Jaw dry. You really think I'ma let your come up walk by? I seen real guys, fakers seem to survive. I guess that's why they reside in a fake state of mind. Yeah, cause every day I got more to say. Captain on the rhythm taking in all the waves. Cause every day I got more to say. Captain on the rhythm taking in all the waves. Thank you. I'm JayaHadaDream and thanks for having me.
Woo! Amazing, amazing. Ah, so good. Thank you ever so much. And thank you. That was brilliant. It's just so nice to end like quite a cerebral discussion with some really awesome music. And thank you also to you and all our panelists for taking part in this. I'm actually really interested to see what will happen if you can weave your veganism into a song. I think that would be.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love that.
There we go. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm just going to quickly pass over to Zoe, who is going to introduce or give you a bit of information about some of our other sessions that are happening as part of Siren.
Yeah, so that was a really interesting discussion, especially looking at like the nuances of veganism and how being vegan doesn't necessarily mean being healthier. So up next we have at 6 o'clock we're going live with a session on is sustainable fashion more affordable. So tickets are over on Eventbrite. Sophia's just put the link in the chat, but they're also on all of our social media handles. So in this talk we'll be featuring Ruth Lee, who runs Bluebell Lane Sustainable Jewellery in Suffolk, Robert Castellani, who's of the clothing company Kachina, and sustainability enthusiast Faye Alexander, as well as a new entrepreneur, Phoebe Bradley, who's Phoebe's UK over on Instagram. And we will explore the true cost of fashion on the environment and the solutions which the industry is exploring. So quick fact, around 500,000 tonnes of microfibers are dumped into the ocean each year, which is the equivalent of 50 billion plastic bottles. So we can see that there is a real need for sustainable fashion, but the question is it really affordable? Make sure to sign up to our mailing list to hear about future events, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, all with the handle at It's Siren Calling. Any more questions, feel free to tweet us using the hashtag Siren Digital or DM us on Instagram, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So yeah, sign up to the next sessions and we'll see you there.
Cool. Thank you very much. Exciting. See everyone again.